What is up, everybody? It is the PGA DFS First Look Show for the Masters. Man, it's been quite a while, to be honest. To be exact, I should say, it's been over a year, 7 months and 7 days since I've been able to say it's Masters Week. I'm going to make sure I mute everything here so that we don't see any background noise, or I'm just playing Augusta music in the background, because I was doing that before to get myself all hyped up for this, and I'm going to bring in my co-host for the PGA DFS First Look Show. It's Geoff Ulrich. And Geoff, man, is this your favorite golfing week of the year, or are you more attuned to, say, the Open Championship or the Canadian Open, for that matter? I know you're excited. So, it is my favorite week.
It's definitely not the Canadian Open for me. Look, I do kind of like the U.S. Open. I'm maybe a bit more of a U.S. Open guy, but it's not like I don't look forward to Masters Week. There's so much hype around it. And the thing is, usually in April, we're so starved for a major. Like, we usually have that 8-month break, right? Whatever. So it just feels like everyone is so hyped for the Masters, regardless of your feelings on the rankings for the majors. But no, this is definitely up there for me. I mean, like, I appreciate all of them. I mean, the Open, they all have their own charm, but this is different this year. I mean, obviously in the fall kicking off, I mean, it just feels weird, but it feels good. It feels fun. I mean, to do it in November.
Yeah. I mean, for me, here's what I kind of measured up to. Number one, I think it's the best golf course in the world. I've been watching golf for 25 years now. What am I, 33? So I started when I was like 8 or 9, right kind of basically when Tiger was making his come up into the professional ranks. And I've seen my fair share of courses, played my fair share. I'd say Augusta is the best that I've seen. I haven't seen it in person, but the way it looks via the cameras, it's great. That's one. Two, we always know it's the best field. Now, granted, most majors are typically the best fields, but at least we're always guaranteed it. And then number three, probably the most important part for my new era of watching golf, it's the technology that the Masters Committee offers us each and every year. They make it better. They're the ones that came up with this TourCast technology that the PGA Tour uses on a weekly basis. Well, the Masters had it a couple of years ago. Now this year, the newest thing and something I'm really excited for is called My Feed or My Groups. And what you're going to be able to do is put your favorite players on there, and you're going to get to see every single shot from them live. So you want to put your 6 players on for your 6 players from the lineup on DK and see every single one of their shots. You're going to be able to do it. No other golf tournament in the world offers that to us. So you got to love it. Of course, ESPN is going to be there as well, and CBS. So fantastic coverage we have to do. And Geoff, before we move on, I think it's a perfect opportunity to tell people about the promo we've got going on. And what you're going to do is you're going to use promo code Augusta because, hey, listen, the Masters is almost here. And with that, you're going to get an Awesemo Plus Platinum Weekly Pass for 50% off. So that means you're going to get basically everything Awesemo has to offer for just the price of the NFL Weekly Pass. With that, you're going to get all of our golf stuff, player projections, ownership projections, premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. Use it before Friday. Again, that's promo code Augusta. So, Geoff, you and I have been talking the last couple of weeks as we're going to do a quick review before we jump into Augusta. Of course, we're going to do much more about the preview than typically we do about a half-hour review. We're only going to do about 15 to 20 minutes here.
Yeah.
But let's jump right in and talk about Carlos the Fall Guy Ortiz. I'm not talking about a fall guy for a drug deal gone bad. I'm talking about Carlos Ortiz and the fall type of situation that he is just playing. Sorry, my internet froze there for a second. He's performed admirably only in the fall. In fact, 3 of his 4 top 10s have come in this circuit. So is he just another one of those players that we have to play in the fall or we have to look at?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, you could definitely make that argument for him. I mean, definitely has done his best work in these weaker field events, right? I mean, he has been a player, too. He's strung form together. Like, when Carlos Ortiz has kind of gotten hot, whether it be putting or just ball striking or off the tee, whatever he's doing well, it's generally strong results together. I mean, this is a player, too. Like, people forget. Tim Frank made this point on Twitter. Like, Carlos Ortiz won 3 times it was the web.com tour back in 2014. He was the player of the year. He got like the in-play promotion. Everyone just assumed this guy was going to be a regular on the PGA Tour. I mean, people were talking about Carlos Ortiz in the same vein. They were talking about like guys like Justin Thomas back then. Yeah. So the guy has game. But you're right. I mean, this is just generally when he's kind of come alive the last couple of years. It's nice to see. I like to see players like this. They kind of, he's obviously had a really big peak early in his career, and he had to go back down there and work his way back up. So, for whatever reason, he needed some confidence maybe in these weaker field events, but I think you'll see him compete a little bit more going forward at some of these tougher events.
Speaking of Augusta, Carlos Ortiz will get there next year because the way that this year's works, in case you don't already know, is that you had to qualify by April of this year. So actually it was like March 25th of 2020. That's why we see players like Victor Hovland and Daniel Berger, thank goodness, we don't have to worry about in this year's Masters. Next year, Daniel Berger is in the field, of course, after winning at Colonial. And, of course, Carlos Ortiz winning the Houston Open will get there as well. But we'll talk about them in April. Thankfully, I don't have to talk about Berger now because I would be dreading that. But let's move on and talk about three golfers that are on the rise after last week's performance. Dustin Johnson came back from COVID, basically picked up right where he left off, Jeff. It looks fantastic. Hideki Matsuyama looks around the green the best I've ever seen him look. Now, he's typically pretty good, but he looked so comfortable around the green last week. It looked like he wanted to miss the green instead of putting. Now, granted, he gained over a stroke putting as well, so that's fantastic. But he had a couple of chip-ins, a couple more lip-outs on chip-ins. He's going to love that around Augusta National this week. And lastly, Brooks Koepka, who said that if he had just put in his old trusty driver on Thursday, he would have won the tournament. So you got three guys all coming into this week, playing great, where coming into last week, they were all question marks. So what are you looking at between these three since they all played last week?
Yeah, I mean, you could even throw Jason Day in that mix. I mean, obviously going off in the final group. I mean, I know he completely self-destructed Sunday, but still, I mean, he got himself in the final group on Sunday in terms that's significant, right? So, I don't know. You don't want to react too much. I mean, this is obviously a weaker field tournament. It's just like a warm up for these guys. Who knows if this is going to carry over, quite frankly. So you don't want to overreact too much. At the same time, I give more credits to guys like DJ and Hideki because we've seen this from them before. Like Hideki's been consistent for the past 10 events. He's a guy that hasn't finished outside the top 30. It's just like you said, he's so sharp around the greens now that now the results came, right? Like a T2. And I give more credits to that because we know his ball striking has been really consistent over the last little bit. Same with DJ. I mean, we've seen this from him. It's not like it's out of nowhere. He was missing cuts before or something, or wasn't competing at majors. He was doing everything. It's just he had to take a break. We just wanted to see it again, and obviously we saw it. So I think the question marks more surround Brooks and a guy like Jason Day. I'm not necessarily sold that Brooks is just necessarily back. I don't know. I mean, it's a knee injury. It's still significant. If we could get more clarity that it's completely cleared up, I would feel better. But he did struggle off the tee in his first event at the CJ Cup too. So we'll see. If he is consistent off the tee, it's definitely going to be a big thing for him for this week. He still struggled a little bit with his irons last week too. Did a lot of his work with the putter. So I have more question marks around Day and Brooks than I do Hideki and DJ for sure.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick synopsis on each. For me, Dustin Johnson, he came in to last week for this week's odds around 18-1, 16-1. Yep. After the second place finish, he jumped all the way to 9-1. Yep. I think by the time we tee off on Thursday morning, he'll end up being the odds favorite. And on DraftKings at $10,000, it's almost a must play for me to start a lineup with. I know that, of course, DeChambeau's there. We got Rahm. We'll get into that. But Johnson, before COVID, was playing incredible. It really has been playing incredible since Brooks said he wasn't his friend, which I don't know if that's really what motivated DJ to become number one again, but certainly there's a correlation between this step up in DJ's game and when Brooks said they weren't friends anymore. Yeah, I would love to see DJ get another major. I think he deserves it, what he's put into the game. And right now, what I love about DJ's game is that his putter, this new hold his arm, using that spider putter kind of method, technology, whatever you want to call it, it's working, and he's putting superbly. Now, granted, he made a 60-footer. Take that out, though, Jeff, and he still putted great last week.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he putted good last week, and again, I think that's significant. DJ obviously throughout his career hasn't been the best putter, so this year we've just seen a new level of consistency for him. For the big thing for me was just his consistency off the tee, right? If he drives the ball like that, he's going to get himself a ton of chance. He's been sharp with his scoring clubs all year. So I think the big thing is at 10K on DraftKings, he's just so underpriced. He's fifth or sixth most expensive. That's ridiculous right now. So He's going to be a massive play this week, one way or the other. Even if he doesn't win, at that price, like if he comes in the top 5, you're pretty much going to need to have him. So I think that's the biggest thing. DJ Chicken to jump up in odds, like you said, playing well, and now he's significantly underpriced. So he's kind of like he should be the most popular player. If he's not the most popular player on the field's probably making a mistake, right? So
I totally agree, especially with the big odds jump there. Of course, if you're just joining us, thank you for coming by our Monday show where, like I said, we do a little bit of a review, but we're mixing in much more of a preview than a review here this week as it is the Masters. And go ahead and give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that when we go live or we put out some content, you can be notified about it right away. So one thing on Hideki that I had note of, and I had to rack back and make sure that I had the right timeline here because, the years are kind of coming together, especially with COVID. We didn't have a Masters in April, but Hideki hurt his wrist at the 2019. So we're talking, almost 2 years ago, Arnold Palmer Invitational. He came back from a wrist injury there. I remember that because I went there and I ended up, you can't talk to him because he doesn't speak that much English at all. But I videoed his swing and he came over and looked at my iPad and checked it out with me. Obviously, he was still working on things. But he came in 32nd at the Masters after being injured for a while. That was his worst finish since 2015. And in that time before that, he had 4 straight top 20s here at Augusta, showing that his game really fits here. So at 8,700, coming off a tied second, my lineups are starting with DJ Matsuyama, and I hope that's not recency bias, but I feel like if you're starting a lineup, these two guys, where they're priced, seems like two of the most highly sought after golfers this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty much the conclusion I came to this morning as well. As far as guys who are underpriced, Matsuyama is probably the second, in there. You got guys like Cantlay, Finau going off at bigger prices. Obviously he's underpriced compared to Tiger, Reed. You're right. I mean, Matsuyama has really played well at Augusta over his career. And now we see him coming in with arguably the best shape his short game has ever been in his career. It's still a matter of, is he going to find some consistency with his putter? I mean, that is obviously the biggest worry with Matsuyama every week, but he has shown flashes with it recently. And yeah, he's up and down, but at least you see those upside weeks. So I'm actually not that worried about it. I also think like wet greens here, it's going to benefit people like that, I think, the most. I think we've seen it in past years here. And maybe I'm just talking out of my proverbial ASS a little bit, but I do feel like in past years when it's been a little bit wetter, the worst putters have sort of putted better here, guys like Paul Casey too. So I think that's going to help Matsuyama a little bit this week as well. So I'm down with it. Again, we'll see what Hideki's ownership gets to. I don't think it'll get out as control as DJ's. That's just my first initial thought because I don't think enough people sort of trust Hideki in the way they trust DJ, but I'm definitely over on Hideki for betting purposes as well. I think this could be interesting, especially with the rain. I think that could favor him.
So our chat just brings up, when's the last time Hideki competed in a major? And it's a good question. I think it's a valid question. And it's been a little time, but at $8,700 on DraftKings specifically, as I kind of turn to that, for me, I think he presents a really good value versus everybody else in that range. I think Tony Finau is still coming back. He struggled with his driver a little bit last week, which makes me nervous for Augusta here. So I think that when you go down the list, you got Tommy Fleetwood next, priced right next to Matsuyama. I think it provides that safety net of a guy that we can really rely on, especially where his game is right now, to get us inside the top 20. And, for a guy that's priced 8,700, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a top 10, top 15. Don't need him to win there. Do we need DJ to win? Yeah, it's probably getting pretty close at 10,000. So that's kind of where I've started. Okay, let's go to our DFS review before we get talking too much more about the Masters, because we'll just kind of avoid it altogether if we don't. And want to check out, of course, the allocations that our pros came up with and a couple of other things. So let's go into the DFS review here, and we're going to start off with some points and some ownership. And believe it or not, Jeff, this is incredible when I looked at this and saw this. Okay. Last week, the top 11, 12, maybe even 13 golfers owned all made the cut. No missed cuts out of the chalk last week. So even if you had a decent 5 of 6 or 4 of 6, you probably had a tough time cashing. And that's exactly what happened to me. I had a pretty good, in fact, I had 4 pretty good higher dollar lines, and none of them cashed because none of them got 6 of 6. So crazy enough, there you can see on the right-hand side all of the guys that made the cut. Included in the no miss cuts, there was also 4 top 10s with Matsuyama, Dustin Johnson, and the like. So Sam Burns, Ty Hatton there as well. Okay, now we go into points. Carlos Ortiz, he was 114. Matsuyama 105. DJ 100. Sepp Straka 96. Koepka 88.5. Taylor Gooch out of nowhere, Jeff, 88 points. He was my big miss. I went to Lee Westwood instead of Taylor Gooch. Typically, I'd pick that every time, but not last week. Sam Burns 84.5. Mackenzie Hughes 83.5. Jay Day 82. Shane Lowry 82. And Ty Hatton 81. So before we move on, I want to ask you about Shane Lowry, Jeff, because he's definitely expected to be low owned. He's almost low owned every time. Why does he struggle at Augusta so much?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't really have like a good reason for you. I think it's just mainly a player who's just not quite as confident around the greens and stuff like that. I think it's just a confidence thing. I think it's a confidence thing off the tee, probably. Maybe some of the tee boxes don't look so great to him. So, Brandon Grace is another like quality player who struggled for a while. Martin Keimer, another Euro who just said like it just doesn't shape up well for him. It could be that with Lowry. This is also a player who struggled around the greens at points in his life as well, and with the putter. So I would say it's just a conglomeration of it. It just doesn't feel that comfortable. Still going to be an interesting play this week for me. I'll probably, again, I do think with the rain in the forecast, I might just bump up someone like Shane Lowry's playing pretty well, just about one over in Europe few weeks ago. But yeah, that's my answer. I mean, I don't think it's any one thing that I've heard of. Anyways, I've definitely looked into Shane Lowry at Augusta before, I know, but I don't have like any clear-cut answer there.
It's an interesting one there. Okay, let's go on to the top GPP lineup review, and it was a split winning lineup. First time that we've had a split winner in quite some time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Before we move on, I saw chat mentioning, there is no 10-shot rule for the Masters this year, which is too bad. I really liked that one. Instead, there's only 94 golfers in the field, or maybe 93 now with Sergio withdrawing. Only the top 50 and ties are going to make the weekend, so just take a note of that cut rule. It's so weird. It started off as like the top 44, then it went to the top 44 and 10, then it went to, in 2013, went to the top 50 and 10 shots. Right. Now we're just down to the top 50. Okay, so the top GPP lineup, we got DJ, obviously, and Matsuyama. That was the stack to do. Matched up with Harold Varner, who this guy, RIP Sewell, maybe, I don't know how to say that, whatever they're doing there. But in any case, Harold Varner came in birdie, eagle, or birdie, eagle, birdie on his last couple of holes. Yeah. So that obviously won him 65 grand, as you can see right there. The one thing that I think is probably the most outlier here is Will Gordon, Jeff. You and I have talked at length, ad nauseum. I've probably bored people to death about it, but this guy just scores. He doesn't finish, but he scores. And there we go in the winning GPP lineup. Anytime this guy's under 7,000, I think you just have to deal with the miscut equity and roster him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in a field like that, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't that strong a field. It's an event before the major. Of course, people haven't seen. Yeah, absolutely. He was in my player pool this week. You'll see him when my lineup gets up, actually. Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially at this price, it's a talent thing too, right? Like, who are you going to play, Will Gordon or
XYZ, Andrew Putnam for that matter? I would take
who just like it was like played on the Corn Ferry Tour last week, right? Like, yep. So yeah, I agree. For right now, if Will Gordon's at this price, especially in fields like this, yeah, he should be on your radar, probably in your player pool.
I mean, 20 birdies was enough to get him the same amount of birdies as DJ. He just can't avoid the big numbers. 8 bogeys, 4 doubles, a triple.
Yeah.
Made the cut though, and look, 78 points, 78.5 for 6,400. It's money. It's a guy that we really, really want to take an eye on for this kind of stuff. So, okay, let's go on to our next slide here, which is going to be the pro review. And I got to be honest, this was the best set of player pool that I have seen Alex Awesemo Baker use since I've started doing this. So kudos to Alex. He had none of his top 13 golfers miss the cut, Jeff. Incredible stuff. Wow, DJ at 40%, Van Rooyen at 39%, Jay Day at 25%, Koepka 22%, Hatton 22%, Gordon, who we just mentioned, at 22%, Adam Scott 16%, Matsuyama 16%, Henley 15%, and Finau, Homa, and Scheffler all at 14% owned. In the $10, he came in 77th, but I believe he scored 2, maybe even 3 top 20s in the $44, which he used basically the same player pool. So just missing on the big GPP, but it looks like Alex with a great player pool and no missed cuts definitely capitalized in the $44 this week, Jeff. It's pretty good feat to see a guy not have any missed cuts in the top 10 and still score pretty well.
Yeah, probably a little frustrating for him. He didn't get something bigger than that.
One, yeah.
But at the same time, obviously, profitable week, like you said, in the 44 especially. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, look, all these big guys definitely ended up showing up, right? Finau, DJ, Brooks. I mean, the week before the major, they showed up. So it really just came down to making sure you sprinkled in the right value plays. Obviously, you needed Ortiz really to hit, unfortunately, because he did have a little bit of ownership. So that's obviously, I think, what probably kept Alex out of the top spot, just the Ortiz, I assume. But other than that, man, yeah, you can't really ask for much more than this, can you? So even had Will Gordon up there at 22%, who, like we said, fantastic play just from a points. So, yeah.
For me, when we switched over to my side, I had a similar core in that I nailed a lot of guys. I had Aaron Wise in the top 10. I had Sam Burns in the top 10. I had Will Gordon, who was in the top 12 or 13 in points scored. Had Koepka overweight, had Johnson pretty much even weight. But my big misses, I had Lee Westwood and Jordan Spieth missed the cut. And as you just mentioned, a lot of the top guys ended up making cut, as we mentioned in the slide before. So those lineups that had Fratelli, who was another big miss for me, Spieth and or Westwood, had no chance to cash.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, obviously. But, I mean, still, being overweight Van Ruin, Wyndham Clark had ownership at that price was really good. So he probably got a little bit of a bump there. But, yeah, going with, it was one of those weeks. You went with the Schefflers and the Redmonds and guys like that over, they're just paying up and going more stars and scrubs. You didn't really have a chance. All those big guys showed up with at least decent weeks, right? Even Hatton was like T7. So, yeah, I pretty much fell into the same kind of thing as you did in my allocation. Then, I mean, I didn't have Spieth and Westwood, but similar type where I just went lower on, just actually had none of a lot of the top guys. So
when Koepka was T2 at -9, 2 shots back of, I think it was DJ at the time.
Oh, yeah.
DJ and Ortiz was at 10 under. I'd made it all the way up to 6th in the $5, I think it was, or $3, whatever contest is down there. Because of the allocation of Brooks and Wise and Straka that I had, but that ended up finishing 98th or something like that.
Yep.
Not quite a profitable week. I always say that you need at least 1 or 2 lineups in the top 50 in these GPPs to be profitable if you're not going to end up in the top 10, obviously. So that didn't happen for me this week. Not a terrible week. I ended up getting, I think, 94% of my GPP investment back. So only lost 6%, which, for a losing week is actually pretty good. Now, I didn't cash any of my big dollars, so that ends up making a pretty bad week. So, all right, let's, I think that's a perfect segue into take a look at how I built out my big dollar lineups. Obviously, I was big on Lee Westwood. I thought this would be a perfect course for him, given the fact that he doesn't. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. There's another pro review. My bad. My apologies. I forgot about the second pro review. I was a perfect leadway into my lineup there, but I'm jumping ahead. My bad. Let's talk about Brick 75 first. Okay. And then we're going to talk about Brontosaurus Flex, who had a couple of top 10s. We're going to see how he did it. First, Brick 75 struggled. 970th was his top lineup. But, Jeff, he had no missed cuts. So that just goes to show you no missed cuts in your top 10. But when you don't have, he didn't have Dustin Johnson in his top ownership. All he really had was Matsuyama to hang his hat on. Goes to show you that sometimes even if your core is pretty good or you get everybody through, doesn't guarantee a profit.
Yep. Looks similar to my week, although I had more miscuts in him. But yeah, similar story, just no DJ exposure, no fun, no money, right? So
yep. That's how it happens. Okay, now for Brontosaurus Flex, who came in 4th and 5th in the the $10. He also was up there in the $44 competing with Alex. Let's see how he did it. There's just one difference, Jeff. One difference only, 28% on Carlos Ortiz. Yeah. That's all you had to do. You had to get Carlos Ortiz, who was 6% owned. You had to have him in 20% owned, and that is how you got it done. So it was a pretty easy one there to show you how he got it done. Carlos Ortiz mixed it in with Matsuyama, Burns, Johnson, Hatton, Gooch, even at 17%, Straka at 17%. He pretty much had it all covered. Not perfectly covered because he didn't win, but pretty much all covered.
Yeah, it's actually almost shocking to me to see that he didn't win. But I guess
he didn't win it.
Yeah, he had Burns in there too. Yeah, over the field. That's even a day in there. Like that's actually shocking to me. He didn't win. But what was his highest lineup? Did you say?
So it actually, the reason why he didn't win is
fourth and fifth. Okay.
Yeah, it had Maverick McNeely. It was DJ with Hatton. So instead of DJ with Koepka,
DJ with Hatton. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, DJ with Hatton was his top with Burns, Straka, McNeely, and Ortiz. Yeah, okay. So he just needed, obviously, he needed 8 more points. So probably coming off of McNeely and finding Gordon, that would have done it actually.
Yeah, I mean, he still had 2 lineups in the top 5. Yeah. So I guess, but looking at that ownership, that's what you at least expect, right? So yeah, that's crazy.
Exactly. Okay, now we can move on to my lineup review, which we'll breeze through these quick. I got 4 of 6. I hit everything I wanted to. I was high on Hovland. I was high on Scheffler. Obviously, the field was high on Scheffler, 32% in the $200 where this contest was. You mentioned Van Rooyen. I thought he was a good pivot off of Clark. I did not like Clark. I mentioned on the show that I felt like he expended a little too much mental energy, and it came to show on Friday when he needed another birdie to get to the weekend, couldn't do it. The field was on Burns, so I can't even say that was good. My misses were if I had found Westwood into Gooch or Fratelli down to Wise, that would have done it for me, but ultimately didn't really have a chance because it didn't even have anyone in the top 5, so it didn't even have Gordon really. It was just a miss for me on Westwood and Fratelli. I will make that miss again likely because I thought they were both good fits, but Fratelli missed on the number and Westwood missed by a couple. When we go to yours, you had a couple of guys in the top 10 and Will Gordon, 416.5 points. Jeff, did this end up getting through the cash line? Or
yeah.
I figured it did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was well into the cash. Actually, if you look at the winning line, I actually had 3 of those dudes. I didn't realize that. But yeah, Hideki, when I was looking back, Hideki obviously had a pretty massive week. So I did something a little different this week. I'm doing like really low stakes. Like I'm just going to throw in 20 lineups every week. And what I did was I went 100% Sam Burns, 100% Matthew Neesmith, and 100% Scotty Scheffler this week. And I'm gonna keep doing that, doing 3 players, 100% ownership, and just seeing how it goes the next few weeks. It's more just for fun to me, to be honest, because I want to see. Obviously, going massively overweight is going to create huge variance, but at the same time, you think about it, you land on Carlos Ortiz instead of Matthew Neesmith this week, and
same price basically.
Go crazy, right? Because the other 2 guys made the cut. Burns had a massive week. But yeah, it was one of those things. I mean, obviously, I faded the top players outside of Matsuyama. Matsuyama definitely saved me having him with Burns in some lineups. Will Gordon saved me a bit. Scheffler was whatever. Actually, the interesting thing about this lineup too is I didn't realize this, but because I had another lineup that was almost the same, but it replaced Im with Henley. Sanjay Im finished 5 shots behind Russell Henley, and they both scored the exact same points.
Same amount of points, yeah.
Henley did not make any my lineups, so I was like, holy, that's pretty nuts. Like to finish 5 strokes behind. So Im had a big scoring week, but yeah, for me, Burns was the best play. I had a massive outright on him too, which really stung, but had some top 10 exposure as well in the betting. So a little bit of profit there, but not much.
Yeah, at least it was a little decent there, and I was sitting there with a small Burns ticket, nothing big, because he was kind of like my second tier play, and then Carlos Ortiz just came out of nowhere. I didn't even think about him to bet. I was like, maybe 5-1 on DJ wasn't a bad bet. I don't think he was 5-1 going into Sunday, but at some point on Saturday he definitely was. But okay, I'm done with the Houston Open. It was a good tournament all in all. I don't want to make it sound like it wasn't.
Good course.
Yeah, I thought the course was actually, honestly, Jeff, I thought the course was a great practice for golfers that wanted to get tuned up for Augusta. One of the things that Brooks Koepka really worked on, and I'm sure was good when he saw that it was going to be right before Augusta, was that they worked on the green complexes and made them very difficult with a lot of raised green complexes, a lot of shaved runoffs. Yeah. And that's exactly what the guys are going to see this week. So a really good test, a really good practice. And so let's talk a little bit about Augusta National. But before we do, I want to tell you about the Monday Night Football giveaway. We got 2 awesome quarterbacks to talk about tonight, guys that are definitely going to be throwing the ball. I say that with a little bit of sarcasm, as we got Joey Big Game Flacco going up against Cam Newton. And what we want you to do is head to our Twitter handle, and we're going to have you tell us who's going to throw for more yards tonight. And Julian Edelman is not an answer to that question. He's not playing tonight either. Although I might actually throw him in there if he was playing, because those other 2 guys, I don't know if they can be thrown for any passing yards. But anyways, tell us who's going to throw for more yards between those 2, and 1 random winner will be selected among the correct guesses. You're going to win a year's worth of Awesemo NFL. Of course, check out our Instagram handle as well. and go and do that. To enter, though, you got to enter through our Twitter page, our Twitter handle. So
who are you taking? You taking Cam or?
I mean, listen, I guess the Jets are like one of the best pass defenses in the league, but I don't know why that is.
I don't know about that.
That's why I think statistics can get kind of wonky a little bit. I'll go with Cam Newton and Jacoby Myers tonight because I'm a New England guy and they're my second favorite team.
I'll side with the elite quarterback and Joe Flacco. So.
Yeah, the elite quarterback, Joey Flacco.
I think if one of these guys gets over 200 yards, it'll be an accomplishment. So.
Can I pick whoever the backup quarterback for the Jets are after Flacco gets knocked out?
I don't even know who their third stringer is. I don't know if we need to dive into that deep. That's a scary thought.
Nonetheless, it'll be a fun game. There's still $1 million on the line on DraftKings. So if you want to
exactly
a year's worth of Awesemo NFL, go ahead and enter that. But let's talk about Augusta National for a minute. Well, first, let's talk about the Masters because I actually had some things I want to talk about. Then we'll talk about Augusta National. So everyone is here in the top in the world except for Joaquin Niemann and Sergio Garcia, who had to withdraw from COVID. I already mentioned Victor Hovland and Daniel Berger. They're also not here. But what I wanted to talk to you about is first-time competitors. We'll call it competitors. Yes, sorry. Word was slipping my mind for a second. They really struggle here at Augusta. There's no two ways about it. But I thought I'd bring you up some of the most prominent players in their first start. Matsuyama came in 27th. Tony Finau 10th. Jason Day and Jordan Spieth came in second. The only other top 10s, Patrick Cantlay 47th, Xander Schauffele 50th, Justin Thomas 29th, Rory 20th, Fowler 38th. That pretty much covers most of the top. John Rahm came in 28th. He's another guy. So, with that being said, I want you to tell me two things. One, is there any first-time competitors you're going to play a lot? Two, of the first-time competitors, which I believe we have somewhere around 30 to 40, who do you think is the best bet to have the best week here at Augusta this week?
Okay, catching me slightly off guard because I don't have my list of first-time competitors, but
I can tell you if they're first-time if you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Champ's not a first-timer? He played last year, right?
No, he couldn't because his first win was the Sanderson Farms, which at the time was not a full FedEx distribution.
Okay.
And then, of course, he won last year in the fall swing again, which was a full distribution, but he didn't get in because of obviously we had COVID. So this is the first time he gets to play.
Okay, that's what I actually thought that was the case. So I will say Cameron Champ.
Okay.
I will have exposure to Cameron Champ. Again, everyone's excited about Bryson hitting it so far, blowing a pass. Cameron Champ can do a lot of the same things. He really can. Great par 5 score. Again, a little bit of a wet course maybe helps a guy like that. And again, we've talked about this a lot, Jason and I, but just the scoring, I got a list up here now, just the scoring aspect of what he can do, at 6,800, if he just blasts the par 5s all week and finishes T28, you could see him in the winning Mealy Maker lineup. I know a few years back, Russell Henry finished like 21st, but he scored so well. Yep. He was in winning Millie lineup. So at 6,800, I could see a similar, I think he's 6,800. 7,100. 7,100. That's cheap enough. You could see him do the same feat. So I'm going to say Cameron Champ's a dude I'll definitely have exposure to 100%.
Yeah, I got a couple of other names here that I thought were interesting. Obviously, Colin Morikawa, Matthew Wolff, their first times out there. Their price, though, maybe a little too expensive for me at a first time at Augusta. Do I think that those guys have the same level of talent that, say, Jordan Spieth or Jason Day did when they came out and had their second place? Yeah, of course I do. But Jason Day and Jordan Spieth didn't have to play against Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, and Hideki Matsuyama, among many others that are in form right now. So a little bit of a difference there, obviously, comparatively to the field strength, at least in my opinion. I think actually I shouldn't say that. I think Spieth's year that he had to play against Johnson and McIlroy, but I don't think they're as good as they are now.
I think Morikawa's price is definitely he'll probably be really low in this week for people who want to take a shot there, but that is I'm not going to pay up for him for a first timer there. He's also feels like lately he's just ready for the year to end, which is completely fair. It's completely fair. The guy's won twice.
He's had a hell of a year.
Won a major. I would be ready for the year to end if I was him too. Like, let's just, let's take a little break here and I can enjoy.
Yeah, this will be the last week for him. That's a great point. Can't imagine he'll tee it up at RSM or OHL Michael. But actually, though, in fact, he's going over for the DP World Tour over in the European. So we'll get to see Morikawa again. One thing I want to note before we go on to the golf course a little bit, which of course I'm sure most people that are listening to this show already know. much about. But the cut line, it did change. It is only the top 50 this year. There's no 10-stroke rule. It's upsetting. I really like that 10-stroke rule. It came into effect a couple of the years, the last couple, and got my guys through the cut. Didn't help Patrick Cantlay out, though, a couple of years ago, actually, when he was coming back, and he was on a huge team of mine. But regardless, it's only going to be the top 50 this year. I saw the chatting about it. So let's move on, talk about Augusta National. I've got some notes on it. Par 72, 7,500 yards, a basic setup, 4 5s, 4 3s, and 10 4s. Talking about par, obviously. But, Jeff, only one par 4 under 400 yards. In fact, only one par 4 under 440 yards. That's the third hole. Kind of drivable, I'd say, especially for Bryson. I think he's going to take 3-wood at it this week.
Well, yeah.
But fairways are relatively easy to hit.
Yeah, relatively easy to hit for sure. Realistically, really easy to hit. And the thing is, even if you're offline on a lot of them, it's not that big a deal. I mean, you can get pathways. Like we saw Tiger miss on I think it was the 10th, 2 days in a row. He just drove it into a clearing and he still had a free path to the hole, right? So there's not even that many hard punch out shots. I mean, you might have to deal with wet rough this week, which could be a factor, but a lot of room off the tees for the big hitters. At the same time, I was going to make this point this morning on Twitter, but I know the course plays well for big hitters. Absolutely it does. But because the rough isn't that big a deal and the fairways are easy to hit, it also brings in short hitters. Let's look at the last.
Look at the winners. Yeah, just look at the winners.
Will it? Even Tiger doesn't hit it far anymore. Okay, maybe a slightly big hitter and Patrick Reed. That's not bombers. Those are not bombers, people. So everyone is a player. That's another thing that I really like about this course. I think it does a good job of bringing the field in play. Mm-hmm. So maybe it plays a little bit differently this week because it's wet. I could see that happening too. But I'm just trying to say it's easy to hit fairways. It definitely I agree. The bombers can get it out there, no worries. But it also brings other people into play. It absolutely does. It does it every year. And for DFS, you can emphasize stuff off the tee and stuff like that. But I wouldn't just write people off if they're not top 10% in driving distance.
Here's what I'll say. If you drive it incredibly consistent here at Augusta this week, your likelihood of having a chance, if you're one of the best golfers in the world, of getting a top 10 is very high. I'll say that. But what I'll say one step further, having an elite driving week doesn't ensure victory here. There's the difference. Will it ensure a good finish? Yes, because if you're driving it well, that means you probably have a chance to putt for 4 eagles around, theoretically speaking. All par 5s are reachable, especially by Bryson, but of course by the best in the world. All of them are reachable and all of them are scoreable. But as you mentioned, Patrick Reed and Jordan Spieth are two of the last guys that I would pick to hit a tee ball for me if I had my choices of guys to hit off the tee. And they're two of the last 5 winners here. Danny Willett, I can throw Danny Willett in there as well. I don't even consider him a Masters winner, even though he is, and we got to deal with him watching every year. But the reality of it is those 3 guys would be especially Spieth would be some of the bottom 10 that I would pick in terms of hitting a tee ball for me. So a couple more notes about Augusta. Obviously, we know it gets its strength from the green and green complexes, 55% scrambling, which makes it one of the hardest, and of course, one of the top 10 hardest greens on tour. The par 5s, Jeff, the 4 of them, they're going to score 50% of DraftKings scoring alone on those 4 holes.
Yep.
And one last note on the course before we move into our first clicks and a couple more things is tons of speculation about the 13th hole, that beautiful par 5, possibly the best par 5 in the world. A lot of people thought that they'd be moving it back behind the 12th green into the new land that they just purchased across that little access road. It's not going to happen for this year's Masters. Yep. Maybe for the 2021 version, but definitely not for this year. So we'll still play as a 510-yarder that Bryson's going to try and take over everything. He's just going to try and go over all the trees, hit it into that big landing area on the 14th hole and have a wedge in. Let's see if he gets it done.
And this is, again, it's an interesting point. I mean, maybe Bryson does that and it gives him an advantage, but people would say, oh, Bryson's going to have an 8 iron into 13. Everyone has an 8 or a 6 or 7 iron into 13. The par 5s are easy for everyone. So again, Bryson could absolutely just, he could, if he's putting well and he just gets even that small little edge from his distance, yeah, it could work out. But again, it's going to bring more people into play. So I'm not saying I'm out on Bryson or anything, or he doesn't have an advantage this week. I'm just saying this event is good because unlike some courses for majors where it's legitimately 20 people can win, there's
like the U.S.
a lot of
Open.
people that are live here, and that's why we see like 40 to 50 to odd winners like Patrick Reed and Sergio winning. I mean, those guys were 40 to 50 to 1 when they went off. So it kind of makes it fun too.
Yeah, totally agree. I think when you look at Wingfoot versus Augusta, just the most recent major, if you realistically go back and look at it, you're like, man, 10 golfers maybe can win this.
Yeah.
Not this week. I really think that if somebody gets hot with, their putter, we saw Spieth do it in 2016 and set the scoring record or tied it with Tiger. He didn't really do much else. So that's one thing I love about the course. So, all right, let's move on to our first clicks. And we're going to get in a couple. Somebody mentioned here in chat, Greg did, that the 13th hole might be the most beautiful hole in the world. And Greg, I totally agree with you, man. I really think it is. 12, 13. That's what I love about Masters coverage. I get to watch those holes all day long. I've got all my TVs on each of the different channels. I mean, it's just total chaos in my house. Gotta love it. My son doesn't get to watch any Thomas the Tank Engine this week, let me tell you. And Thomas the Tank Engine's not even in the field, so I don't have to worry about rostering him either. But our first clicks, we saw Dustin get his number basically cut in half after the tie 2 at Houston Open. So it's either him or Bryson at 9-1. Are you thinking you can get a better number on one of those guys, maybe in tournament, and you're starting with your card with, say, John Rahm? Because that's what Ben is doing. I asked him this morning. Ben Raza, of course, our other co-host here.
He's starting his card with Ben Rahm or John Rahm?
He's starting with Rahm, thinking he can get a better number in tournament on Bryson and or Dustin.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Especially Bryson is probably riskier if you like Bryson, because Bryson could just theoretically come out from start to finish. DJ has always kind of been like more of a slow starter, at least in my opinion. And look, recently, I think if you're looking to get on DJ, yeah, definitely think about it like Friday afternoon if he's a little bit behind or something, or even just after the first round if he's like 5 shots back. I definitely like that strategy. Definitely will be looking to take advantage of it. Probably will be Dustin for me, the guy I'm targeting too, quite frankly. Yep. He's kind of like the guy I favor the most. I'm not sure why Ben chose Rahm to target over those guys pre-event, probably just because of the better odds, I would assume, which actually makes sense.
And that's even come down since this morning, because that was 13-1 and now it's 10.5.
Yeah. And again, there's not a huge difference in odds here that we're talking about, but the thing that is going to be a big factor is the weather too. I mean, like right now, Friday afternoon looks like it might start clearing up, so that could play into it. If you got a guy who is, like I said, back on the first round and it starts to look like better weather for Friday afternoon, I would hit it quickly, because if they do go out in softer greens with like brighter sunny skies, you could see better scoring Friday afternoon. So that's something else to consider if you're thinking of a strategy like that in play. Make sure you're keeping track of what's going on in the event, because if it starts to clear up and your guy's about to tee off in the afternoon, it could be a low round for him, and you'll probably miss like the better odds. So
for sure, and great spot to use Odds Shopper as well here on our Awesemo site. Of course, if you don't know how to get to that, go to awesemo.com, go across the banner and click Odds Shopper. And there it'll tell you that John Rahm is 11-1 on FanDuel versus the 10.5 to 1 on DraftKings and 10 to 1 at BetMGM. So a great tool there. Hey, 1 point, does it matter? Well, if you're betting $100, yeah, it matters. Of course it does. Matters a nice more of a return there. So take a look at that. Points obviously matter when you can get them. Speaking of points, though, when we get into this outside of the teen range and we're in the 20s and say 30s or 20s all the way to 50, starts off with Cantlay and Matsuyama at 28 and 30 to 1. I think that's going to probably, as I'll mix in a little DFS, I think that's going to probably bring ownership up on Hideki Matsuyama. I'm sure that'll really skyrocket it. Patrick Cantlay, I think that he'll end up coming in at good ownership as well. Do you think that either of these two guys are worth a bet at this range, or do you still think it's too long of an odds for them at this point?
So Cantlay and Matsuyama, those were the two, right? Sorry, my computer just made a noise as you talk. Yeah, I definitely like Matsuyama this week. I'll be on him for betting. His price has come down. I see some people already kind of touting him as well, who are kind of popular in that realm. So, but plus 25 to 1, I'm fine. I'm fine taking it. And the thing is, again, I mentioned, some of those guys in the mid-range, guys like, Reed, Sergio, even Willett was like 50 to 1 pre-event. They're also all kind of the same age range as Cantlay and Matsuyama, like that late 20 elite, but haven't quite gotten there yet in a big event. I like it. I mean, I like the setup for these guys. I mean, I know they're probably not as good as guys like Thomas and Bryson. I mean, they're close, but they're probably not quite as good. But you're also getting double odds here. Like there's no juice left in Justin Thomas, Dustin. If you're taking one of those guys, you're expending a big part of your bankroll, and that's fine. I absolutely understand that strategy. I'm not even saying it's bad, but I almost always prefer, especially with the Masters, you target the mid-range guys and you can add a couple more. Matsuyama will be on there for sure. Cantlay will be on there for sure from me. I might even think about Tony Finau for similar reasons. So actually, I'm not going to not think. I've already bet Tony Finau, so I shouldn't even say it like that. It's just a matter of I'm just waiting to see if I can find better price later in the week to add to him. Really, so
no, I think that's fair. My only question was going to be if it comes down to Finau or Matsuyama, 88 and 8,700 for DraftKings or for betting. It looks like Finau's a little longer odds, so if you want to play that, maybe go that. But on DraftKings, is it a big decision for you, or are you playing both?
You can absolutely play both. I don't think that's a problem. But if I'm going to lean Matsuyama, absolutely, I'll rank him. I feel pretty good saying that. I like the way Hideki's come in. He's played a ton. I like the lead up in that regard for him. I like the way his short game's looking. The approaches have been fine the entire time. It's just, we also saw him, at the U.S. Open. Like, he was up there in strokes gained tee to green, almost led the field. He just couldn't putt on those greens. And again, I just come down to maybe this won't work out, but the wet greens, I really feel like that could be a big thing on bent grass. He's putted at Augusta before. Like, he knows the greens at least. You got to figure that's going to help him a little bit with the confidence. So I'm pretty big on Matsuyama this week. I got a little bit of piece of him when he was 40-1 last week. Added to him last night when he was 31, and I'll finish it off with some more at 25-1 probably. I do prefer him over Finau, even though I'll have exposure to both.
Yeah, I totally understand as well, and got a great chat going here today, and got a decent amount of people in here. So don't forget to give us a like. Hey, we got the number one ranked PGA player in here as well, the Alex Man 93. He's trying to make sure he gets in good enough Millie Maker lineups this week to keep that ranking. And like I said, make sure to subscribe and give us a like on the way out. So a couple more things. Let's go over some values. So in this, obviously, there's plenty of things to bet on. I mean, you can come up with anything here. I put it in top values. I like to bet top 20, but it's the Masters, so you can bet pretty much anything you want. So I'll leave the floor open. You can give me some values if you want, or you can give me some fun bets that you've clicked on so far.
So, I mean, I'm going to bet Paul Casey this week. I got him out of book at plus 70-1. Someone threw out to me that they saw him even bigger than that, but I'm fine with it. I mean, look, you go by recent form, doesn't look like he's done much, but I mean, this player's peaked twice for the majors really well already. Obviously coming in T2 at the PGA, and if the weather's going to throw things around a bit, again, I come down to who's won this event over the last 5 years. It's been two veterans, two guys like in their late 30s, early 40s. And it's been guys like just under 30. Casey definitely fits like the Tiger or Sergio mold here. He's played pretty well. He's peaked well for the big events. I think this price is a little weird, quite frankly. Like, you see him. I'm just looking at a book right now. Cameron Champ has shorter odds than him. Tommy Fleetwood. Like, what have these guys done to deserve to be like, shorter than Paul Casey? So Casey's got good course experience too. Again, the weather, a good Open Championship player. I'll take a piece of that. So I don't mind Cameron Champ. His odds look like they're coming down a bit, but the other one I'll throw out for a long shot is Matt Wallace at top 20, plus 1,000 or better. I've seen, top 10, plus 1,000 or better. He's played good golf. Was in contention a couple weeks ago in Europe, top 10 at Memorial. It's be his second time playing, but he's gone through some swing changes and seems like he's playing good again. He's just a good player when he's in contention. And again, I hate to keep bringing back the weather, but these English guys in the rain, I don't know. I just like that narrative. It's something I'm going to be leading on this week. So,
flying up the odds board, he got his number cut in half as well as did DJ. Well, DJ's not quite cut in half, but this guy I'm going to talk about, I get. If I had my other co-host with me, not you, Jeff, but Ben, I would be getting lambasted just about now. But because it's you, I think I might be able to sneak away with a little bit of Francesco Molinari talk. $6,700. He was 220 to win. He was 8-1 on the top 20 last Wednesday. Now 3-1 on the top 10 and 110-1 to win. He gained throughout his bag last week, so I'm not gonna lie. He was my first click under 7,000. Am I crazy?
Oh man, it's gonna be such a crazy story if Molinari ends up like just doing anything this week. Like if he gets himself into contention, I mean, again, you I bring up the course brings people into play. I mean, Molinari was deep into contention here, not a big hitter at all. So yeah, to see him gain throughout the bag last week, I don't want to say it was shocking, but like it's like, wow, is this guy back now too? Like we got like an informed Francesco Molinari to worry about this week. It's
Let's
crazy.
do it. I love it. I love an informed Francesco Molinari.
No, absolutely. It's great. It just throws another monkey wrench into it. And, you look at who he's paired with down here. You're going to tell me you're going to take like Ben Ann or Zach Johnson over Molinari. I mean, like the upside is tantalizing. It's absolutely tantalizing. So I'm kind of with you on it. I don't really want to have to think about it, but I'm going to now. I will say this, down in that range, I also kind of like Brandt Snedeker. Hit his irons pretty well last week. We saw him, I think, after the first round being contention. He another veteran who just gears himself up for the majors, right? And we've seen him perform well at the Masters. I like the fact there's a little bit of rain for Brandt Snedeker. I think 6,900, he's going to be in play for me too.
Thanks to the Alex man, who I just mentioned a little bit, for the super chat. It's for my Cheetos fund. And Jeff, if you don't know my Cheetos story, you'll have to get that from me another time. It involves Pat Perez and my wife, of all things. So another time, another day.
Interesting.
Yeah, good story nonetheless. Okay, another couple of values here. So this is where I maybe am stretching a little bit, but when I see these numbers, I'm like, okay, well, 8-1 on a top 20, it doesn't seem terrible. There's two guys sitting at that number who I, in fact, think are very similar type players, what they rely on. And it's JT Poston, who had a decent week last week, and Justin Harding, who also had a decent week last week and came in 12th here last year. Now, he was really in form last year. He's a great putter. JT Poston, also a great putter. I'd put both of them as possibly even the top 15 in the world in terms of strokes gained putting. If I had to pick some guys to make a 10-footer for me, they'd be up there. So at 8-1 in the top 20, is that too much of a stretch? And would you rather go to DK with them at 6,300?
I don't mind them on DK. I don't think. I mean, I'm not in love with it. I think I'd probably lean Poston. I do like me some Justin Harding. I like me some Euros, as you guys can probably already see. He's played okay in spurts. He's been a little bit more shaky, though. Poston's been pretty consistent. So I want to say he's like a Carolina native too.
Yeah, Carolina. Yep.
Yeah, he's been pretty consistent this year. I think you got to give him some credit for that. Again, I really like these guys who've come in here, just been like consistent. No lulls, no injury issues, no layoffs. You got to give them a little bit of credit coming in here. It's easier to peak when you're in that kind of form, and I think Poston is kind of one of those players. So I'm interested for 6,300. I might have a bite. I mean, there's really no one else other than Harding down here that really did it for me right off the bat. I know those were the first two names I looked at too. Is Max Homa going to come alive finally? I don't know. That's just a guess. That's just a shot in the dark, right? I mean, Poston and Harding are the guys we've seen do it all year. So yeah, I think Poston is definitely in it for a top 20. I don't mind that at all. And I think he's at least semi in play to be like a small part of your GPP lineups. Again, you don't have to be, you don't need a ton of JT Poston to be overweight the field, right? So it's just a small dabble. That's where I would go. Absolutely.
So Homa, you mentioned him, and he's an interesting name, but for me, he's a guy that he needs to be showing something with his irons for me to play him. And his irons still haven't broke from this rough patch. I mean, he hasn't gained strokes with his approaches since the 3M, where he had a good week. Since then, though, it's, what's that, like 6 or 7 starts where he hasn't gained on him?
Seems like a player just ready to just call it a year, right? And that's fine. Again, that's fine. He's it was a great start for him. Never really got on track after the COVID restart, but I don't know. Is he going to pick it up at the Masters all of a sudden, just in the last event? I don't know. Again, I'm worried about. I don't really want to bet on players like that in this spot who are so close to being finished now, and like they're just going to turn on for the last major. I guess it could happen. It probably will with a couple players, but I don't really want to bet on it. So
before we go into our couple minutes of DFS preview, even though we've kind of been doing it throughout, any bets that you are taking a look at, say even make cut parlays, miscut parlays, anything like that?
Yeah, the parlays are always fun. I mean, with the no 10 shot rule, obviously to make the cut maybe becomes a little bit tougher, but that doesn't always come into play. So maybe it's not that big a deal, but those are always fun. You always see sometimes books just put out, just too big odds on guys to make the cut, because realistically over 50% of the field is in play, is going to make the cut, right? So one thing to consider this year, the field is a little bit bigger. So, the odds drop just from that perspective a little bit, I guess. A little bit tougher to make it, but I think it was like 87 last year, it's 96 this year. Again, just something small to consider. But yeah, I'll probably make like some kind of make the cut parlay. I like targeting things like top 20 in these limited fields, though. I think you get a little bit better odds, top 10s as well. So nothing too crazy for me, but I'll probably make some dumb parlays on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and of course, some sites allow you to do the parlays, some don't. So we don't have to get too much into the weeds on those. But even if you took like all of the golfers to make the cut, all of the top ones, so like Brooks, Rahm, Rory, DJ, you're still only getting like a plus 200.
Yeah, you gotta sprinkle in a couple deep guys in there. Like you gotta take a shot with a couple dudes. Like Poston might be a good one. He would probably have big odds.
Yeah,
he's going off like 301 to win.
Oh yeah, you're right. See, that bumps it up quite a bit. That's a good call.
Yeah. So you gotta dive a little deep. You gotta look at those values you really like if you're making to make the cuts. I mean, I don't know if you want to go with the old guys, but there generally is like one or two old guys that'll make it. But really try and look at those PGA pros who are just getting discounted a little bit, and that'll bump your. But you don't want to go too deep into them, but just a couple. That'll really bump up your odds. So
yeah, for sure.
Take like
that's
30
what you're going for, anyways.
Take like 10 instead of 30, right?
So how many of those old geezers, sorry for my language there, are going to actually make the cut this week? I'll say there's probably like, 10 of them? Maybe not quite 10. We can rattle them off really quick here. Let's see. We got Larry Mize, Olaf Thobel, Sandy Lyle, Vijay Singh, Trevor Immelman, Bernhard Langer, Fred Couples. Did I miss any? I don't think so. So 7.
Yeah.
Any make the cut?
I'm going to say one does. It's going to be either Couples or VJ. I think that the longer course probably going to favor those guys. One of them probably make it. Probably Couples.
Okay. That was more just fun than it was anything else. Okay, let's go over our DFS preview for the last couple of minutes here while we are on. We've got 5 golfers above 10K, a very, very tightly packed 9K and 8K section. In fact, you can find a golfer at every $100 increment except for $9,900. So, in your first clicks on DraftKings, who is the first guy in your lineup this week?
So, first guy in my lineup, over 10K, you said?
Yeah, or anybody. If first guy in your lineup that you've clicked doesn't have to be a 10K.
Oh, okay.
Anybody.
Okay.
You can start with Cantlay if that's the route you're going, or elsewhere.
Yeah, so first guy is going to be Hideki Matsuyama. Like I said, I'm just going to be overrated on Hideki. Okay. Already bet him. I just like the way his game. I just like the lead up for him. I like the way it's set up. I like the way he's played since over the last 10 events, and I think this could be, like I said, a really good spot. So I'm going to stick with that and say he's going to be my first click.
Okay, I like it. I think my first click after seeing him for 2 days, it was my first click, and now seeing him for 4 days, it solidifies it. It's Dustin Johnson for me, and if Dustin Johnson was 11,100 or 11,000. It probably would be Jon Rahm. But the fact that Dustin Johnson is $500 cheaper than Rahm, and I think has just as much win equity as Rahm does, DJ's going to be the first guy in my big dollar lineup this week. There's no doubt about it. And your guy, Matsuyama, number 2, he's probably going to be the second guy in it. Now, if that's the route we go, let's say that Johnson and Matsuyama is our first stack, that leaves an average of just about, mid-7s. So let's go down to the mid-7s. There's some Justin Rose, Matt Fitzpatrick. We can even deep a little lower, Cam Champ, Ian Poulter, in that range. So from 7,600 to 7,000, as we work in our third and fourth guys in our lineup, who are your first clicks in this range?
So if I'm sticking in the 7,000 range, I am probably going to have some Lee Westwood in the old lineups this week.
Okay.
As crazy as that may sound, but he's really played well. He's played consistently. And again, you look at what he's done. Not only has he played a lot, but top 20s everywhere, top T13 at the U.S. Open. I'm not looking for Lee Westwood to necessarily win this week, but I think, if it just plays a little sloppier, and he was in contention in the year Willow won when it was tough scoring too. I like the lead up. I like the lead up. I like the price. And I think if you're going in the low 7K range, that's the guy I feel most comfortable with. So I'll be looking to Lee Westwood for some value. I brought up Champ up there too, but again, I feel a little bit more comfortable just because I think Westwood has such a better chance of making the cut. He might get outscored by Champ, and that makes both of them viable. But I'm going to lean Lee Westwood down there in the low 7Ks.
So I'll start up in the mid. The high range first names that I'm looking at, I think stability. First name I'd click was Matt Fitzpatrick. I don't think he's missed a cut here. Let's see. I know he's also got a good start mixed in there as well. I just had my notes on here. He has 21st, 38th, 32nd, and 7th. So he's 4 for 4 with a top 10. You love seeing that. I think I was going back and forth between him and Louis Oosthuizen, and they have very similar results here.
Yeah.
Louis is not going to withdraw from this event, but I can't play Louis in my big dollar lineup because if he withdraws, I'm going to end up jumping off the Skyway Bridge. For all of my Tampa residents, you know what that is. Shut down today because we got that hurricane rolling through. But so I went down to Fitzpatrick in that range. Another guy that I think fits that mold of Oosthuizen and Fitzpatrick is Cam Smith. Cam Smith coming in off of back-to-back really good starts, hasn't missed a cut in quite some time, and has a top 5 here at Augusta, 3 for 3 and made cuts as well. So those are kind of my first 3. And lastly, I'll give you my last one in this range, Ian Poulter. This guy that hasn't missed a cut here since 2015, at least. I only look at 5 years of course history. I'm sure there's probably, I don't know if he has a missed cut. Actually, I think he's competed here like 14 times and only missed a cut once. Yeah. Coming off of 3 straight top 15s. So at 7K, is Ian Poulter going to be chalky? I think the answer might be yes. Secondly, is that going to scare you away from him in your lineups?
It'll be interesting to see how chalky Poulter actually becomes. I don't know if he's going to get up there. We'll see. Maybe people just lead to him because, again, you got like Leishman down there. I know I mentioned Snedeker, but I don't think that many people are going to play him. So realistically, like under Cam Smith, because I think Cam Smith will probably be the slight chalk around that low 7K range. Under him, I think Poulter will probably be the next people gravitate to. So he might like lead ownership in that range. It'll be interesting to see. I think I kind of agree with that. But he's played really consistently at Augusta. Yeah, you're right. Very consistent record. I don't know. I don't know if I'll have a piece of that or not, or if I'll just bypass and try and get some lower owned players, like maybe take a shot with Molinari at 6,700. Because realistically, Molinari probably better upside. But yeah, absolutely. I don't have a problem with the play or anything. I agree. When he's playing well, he performs well at Augusta. And again, I mentioned it brings people like Poulter into play who are just savvy, smart around these holes. So.
Yeah, I think going back to Louis Oosthuizen for a second, I think we have to roster him just for the albatross equity that we have there. Obviously, Greg brought it up in our chat. One of the best shots I've ever seen in my life on the second hole at Augusta when he threw it in for double eagle. What a shot. Augusta does that for you, though. If you hit it in the right part of the green, it's going to funnel a little hole, and that just creates the magic. I absolutely love it. So I'll have some Louis Oosthuizen for sure. It's not that I just don't think I can put him in my big dollar line.
I kind of like Fitzpatrick. I mean, I'm a big Louis guy, but I kind of like Fitzpatrick over him a little bit too. He's cheaper, and realistically, I think Fitzpatrick has just shown a little bit more. They both played pretty well recently, so I could see either of them having big weeks. Maybe you roster them both in that range or something. But those are the two guys I kind of really like there too.
So one of the things that I tried to build out. So I mentioned Matsuyama, DJ is kind of my top guys. I wanted to get in a third guy, either Patrick Cantlay or John Rahm. But what that's doing is it's forcing me down to guys like Kevin Kisner and Zach Johnson, which, it's not really what you want to do. But Kisner hasn't missed a cut here.
Yep.
Coming off of a good start at the Zozo. For Kisner and Zach Johnson's actually been on a great run of golf. They're similar golfers. They're not going to drive it over 280 yards. As somebody said, we really should be having somebody drive it over 280 in your lineups. But at 7,100 and 6,800, is there any interest for you there, or are we reaching a little too much where we should just be going to Cam Champ?
So, I mean, I brought up Snedeker, so obviously I'm kind of on the board that you can consider these guys. Look, it's up in the air how this course is going to play. I mean, I really still think it is. It's going to be wet. It's going to be a little longer, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be all big hitters. It just doesn't. I mean, I know the year Mike Weir won, the course was soaked. It was drenched. The rough was wet and up, and he just 3-shotted all the par fives and won like that. Guys can still get hot with their wedges and stuff. So I think these guys are in play. I think Zach Johnson's probably in play. I'd probably lean Zach Johnson if you're going between him and Kisner. He's played pretty well lately. Like I said, I kind of like Snedeker, but Zach Johnson's probably shown the most of those three of late. So I don't know. I'm gonna look at that range: Snedeker, Johnson, Kisner, and I will probably have exposure to at least one of those guys. Not like ton again, but if they're going to be like really low owned, yeah, these guys can get hot with their putters too, and it doesn't even matter at that point if Brent Snedeker is gaining 9 strokes putting for you. So. Yeah, I think the answer to your question is they're cheap enough that, yeah, you should look to at least one of them.
So, okay, we'll kind of sum up our show here with this kind of last question I'll talk to you about. It applies more than just the question I'm going to ask you. I think it applies throughout a bunch of different scenarios. We can even go all the way up to the top. I'll give you 2 scenarios, one up at the top and one up at the bottom. Patrick Cantlay 9,600 versus Collin Morikawa 9,500. We saw Collin Morikawa obviously win a major, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, so we know he can get it done. Cantlay wins in his last start. Cantlay has a missed cut and a 9th place finish here in the last 2 years. Morikawa hasn't played. Similarly, Kevin Kisner, 4 for 4 and made cuts here. Yep. Cam Champ hasn't played here. Cam Champ's coming off a top 10. In that situation, the salaries are almost identical. Champ and Kisner are the same at 7,100. Cantlay and Morikawa, $100 difference. I, at Augusta, click Cantlay Kisner. Anywhere else, it's more of an ownership game. But because it's Augusta, I'm nervous about Collin Morikawa, maybe even a little bit Champ. More nervous about Morikawa than I am Champ, though, because of how much salary I have to allocate. Yeah. And this is Augusta National. First-timers don't do well here.
That's the thing right there. That's why I mentioned off the top, like, I don't want to necessarily pay up for a guy like Morikawa. Could he top 10? Absolutely. Of
course.
He could challenge, but the likelihood of that is lesser, and especially at 9,500, there's just more bust potential, right? If Champ and Morikawa both come T40, Champ isn't killing your lineups. Morikawa is killing your lineups, right? Champ might even still win you money if he comes T40 because he's going to score so well, most likely.
The
right?
Will Gordon scenario, yeah.
Exactly. So I that's why I brought up Champ. Like Champ, I would actually probably take over Kisner, just because if they're both over 7K. But Morikawa again, I'll eat the chalk up there with the top guys. I think that's probably what you should do. I would play Hatton over Morikawa this week too. Hatton's playing really well, so.
And he's got a couple of starts here. Not great. I don't think the course sets up great for him. But in that one-off scenario, I probably would too. Personally, I'm playing Cantlay. I'm playing Koepka. I'm playing Schauffele. I'm playing everybody above. I'm dropping a little bit. I'm going to Patrick Reed. I mean, the guy is in form, and I feel like he's going a little under-talked. It's super early in the week, granted. But in my ownership projections, which I put out already as part of my model, which is, of course, an Awesemo premium subscription content there, I projected around 12 or 13%. So Patrick Reed, certainly in the Millie Maker, might end up being a good target. So, all right, Geoff, this has been an awesome show. I'm so excited for the week. So I would get in pretty big trouble by the chat and by others if I didn't stop you and say, who is Tiger Woods putting the green jacket on in Butler Cabin on Sunday afternoon?
Oh, man. I'll say Hideki. I really think that this might just be the time. It's probably not going to be the time, but I'm going to say that's my choice. Look, I could sit here and pick like the 10-1 guy. Like, I don't know, but I'm just going to say Hideki. I think he's coming in with some interesting lead up, and I always go for a guy a little bit off the top. So give me some Matsuyama to win his major.
Yeah. I understand he would be, if I'm not mistaken, the first major champion of Japanese descent there, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure about that one. Could be wrong. I know South Korean had Y.E. Yang win it there. Unless I got those nationalities mixed up. I apologize if I do. No. But, okay. Got a quick question, then I'll give you my winner from Jordan. How polarized do you think ownership will be between the top 5 guys? I think they're all going to come in roughly 20%. Maybe the only one that doesn't is Bryson because of the salary. I think that people will be like, oh, well, wait, I can go get DJ for $1,200 cheaper.
Yeah.
I think DJ commands 25%, maybe even up to 30 in that Masters Millie Maker, the $4,500, maybe even 35% in Bryson towards 10. I think the other guys, Thomas, Rahm, and Schauffele, and the other one that I missed there. McIlroy, thank you. I think they're all coming around 20%, Jordan.
Yep, I agree 100%. DJ should suck up a lot of ownership, and even Schauffele a little bit at 9,800. We didn't talk. I also really like Xander Schauffele this week, by the way. He probably would have been my pick if I was going a bit higher for the winner. But Yeah, I agree. DJ will soak up ownership. I expect really flat between Thomas, DeChambeau, Rahm, McIlroy. And you're probably right with the call that DeChambeau might be the lowest among those four, but I think it'll be really close, and we'll know more later in the week, obviously.
Of course. All right, so my winner, getting out of here, I'm going to go boring, Dustin Johnson. I'm sorry, I think that if Bryson doesn't putt well,
it makes so much sense.
If Bryson doesn't putt well, I think it's DJ. If I had to pick a longer winner right now, somewhere in that 30 range, I mean, I don't see why Patrick Reed wouldn't be able to get it done again. He's already done it once, and he's playing in good form. So those would be my picks outside of DJ there. So, Geoff, been a great show. Guys, on your way out, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our videos. We're going to be having so much more coming out this week. Ben and Timothy Frank are going to be doing the Pga Dfs strategy show tomorrow afternoon, and then Ben Raza and I on our live before lock show at 8:30 on Wednesday. So, Geoff, thanks for coming by the Masters. Good luck to everybody this week. Of course, if you have more questions for us, you can see our Twitter handles right there on the screen at DFS Golfer 23 for myself and at the Fantasy Grind for Geoff. Hit us up there for any questions, and thank you guys for joining. We will see you next week for the RSM Classic, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then we get a week off, and then OHL Mayakoba winds up the season before we start it all over again at Tournament Champion. So, till next week, everybody, thanks for coming by, and we will see you on the other side. Cheers.